And the question they asked again and again was, what has God done with my baby now? Is the baby in heaven, or where is it? Is it anywhere? And I had to be honest and say, I don't know what God has done with your baby. The Bible doesn't answer that question. God must have a good reason for not telling us. I know many pastors say your baby's in heaven, but I can't say that because I can only say what the Bible says. And so I had to say, I don't know, but I added, if you knew God as well as I do, you would know that whatever He's done with your baby is right. And you can trust Him. But you see, you've got to believe in a certain kind of God to talk that way. A God who will always do right. And therefore, whether He tells you what He's doing or doesn't tell you what He's doing, you know and you are sure that what He's done is right. That gives you a security in your soul. It doesn't answer all your questions, but it gives you a security. Now, God is not only a covenant-making God, but He's a covenant-keeping God. And you can guarantee that what He promises will always be. That is why, to jump right ahead for one moment, that is why I am quite sure that the promised land still belongs to the descendants of Abraham. Because God promised it to them. And that's the biggest factor in the whole Middle East political situation. But the politicians are ignoring it, right, left, and center, and talking of the situation in terms of humanitarian or straight political terms. But the big factor is that that land belongs to the Jews. And God has not gone back on His promise. It is the promised land and always will be. So that shows how important the covenants are. And all the more amazing because God keeps His promises. He's reliable. He's faithful. You can trust Him right to the end. You know that He will keep His word. Now, the rest of today, we're going to look at the covenants He has made. And my answer to the question, how many covenants are there, is 5. And when the question is asked, and how many affect me as a Christian, the answer is 4. There's one that doesn't. There's one that is exclusively Jewish. And it is for the Jews, but it's not for me. And it's amazing how people can get confused and put people back under the covenant that doesn't belong to Christians. I'll give you some illustrations of that later. But in the remaining moments of this first talk, I want to just introduce you to one, the first of the covenants that He made. And He made it with a man called Noah. It's a very sad story, the whole thing. In fact, the story contains the saddest verse in the entire Bible. And that verse is, God regretted that He had made man. I don't think there could be a sadder verse. God was sorry that He'd made us. I've been in courtrooms where parents of children have said in the court, we wish we'd never had children. When the children have gone wrong and messed up their lives and got into vice and crime. Yes, parents have said to me, I wish we'd never had them. That's a terrible thing for a parent to say. But God said it. God said, I wish we'd never had them. Wish we'd never made them. It was at a particularly sad and decadent point in human history. The earth was filled with violence. That's what happens when people get away from God. Violence spreads so quickly, and society becomes less and less safe, and old people can't walk the streets in safety. That's the result of getting away from God. And violence was one of the things that had filled the earth when God regretted making us. The other thing was kinky sex. And of course they go together. Perverted sex and violence are sisters, if you like. They each lead to the other, because they're both treating people as objects and not as subjects, as things and not as people. And the whole of society had become riddled with perverted sex and violence. And it even makes this incredible statement in Genesis chapter 6. It says, every imagination of man's heart was only evil continually. What a statement. The only thing people could think about was how to do something bad, how to do something cruel, how to do something barbaric. That's all they could think about. What's the next big thing we can do? The next trick we can play? The next whatever. And the perverted sex was taking a particularly horrible turn. Angels were having sex with men, or rather with women, human women. You see, God has made the orders of life very clearly. We're here as human beings, animals are below us, and angels are above us. They are superior to us in strength, in intelligence. They are a higher form of life. The world seems to find it difficult to believe in angels, but the Bible certainly does, all the way through. So we have animals, humans, angels, all created by God. And God has absolutely forbidden sex between those three different orders of life. Whether it's between humans and angels, which is now featuring on videos. Humans and animals, which is featuring on video nasties. Or humans and angels. Those are disgusting relationships to God. As also are relationships sexual between men and women. God has ordered life to operate in His way. And what was happening in Noah's day was that angels and human women were having intercourse. And it was producing hybrids of a particularly repelling kind. The word in Hebrew is Nephilim, but we don't really know what it means. It's sometimes translated giants, or it means grotesque creatures. Now, God was looking down on all that. A world outside violence and perverted sex, and inside every imagination of man's heart only evil continually. And that's when it says God regretted that He had made man. He made a decision to wipe the whole lot out. What a terrible decision. But He found one man who was living right and who had taught his family to live right. And he had a wife, 3 sons, 3 daughters-in-law. And because that man's influence on his family was such, God said, I'm not going to destroy them all. And He told the man to build a boat. Crazy thing to do in the middle of the land. But he built a boat. And you know the rest of the story.